Welcome, guys. Today we are going to learn about control flow in the second part of our JavaScript tutorial. So let's get started. So basically, in this tutorial, you will learn about the control flows are different various control flow which JavaScript provided, like if-else statement, for loop, while loop, break statement, continue, and switch statements. Okay, so let's start and we'll create a program onto that. So first we have to save this file, saving this file as a, let's say, name as a JS underscore, and we give the name control flow dot JS, and I'm going to store it. So save, I have saved it, this file. Now let's start and first understand. Let me write down over here JavaScript if else statement. Okay, so there are different statements like if statement, if else statement, and if else statement. Okay, now we'll see the example of each and everything. Okay, the is, let me write down the syntax. What is the syntax of this? So we say if syntax, it would be if condition the body of if. Okay, so basically if the condition is evaluated to true, the code inside the body of if is executed, and if the condition is evaluated to false, the code inside the body of if is skipped. Okay, so let's take an example. So this is my example. Okay, so what I'm going to do, let me save this first and run this. So for that I need to go where my files are stored. Now node file name, okay, because I have given the prompt, it will run on to that. So const number, let's say I give a number over here as 6. This is number I have given, and I'll run it again. So you can see the number is positive, right? Let's say I change this as a -6 over here. Okay, and I'll run it again and we'll see the then if statements is easy, right? Because this statement is not given over here because my number value is less than a 0 and this condition is not true. So that's why the code of this if body is escaped and we are putting over here. Okay, now let's take an example of if statement. If else statement. Okay, so how is it would be if given condition block of code, if condition is true, else block of if condition is false. Okay, so this is the if else statement code, right? So what if how this is going to be evaluated? So if my condition is evaluate to true, the code inside the body of if will be execute, and if the condition is evaluated as a false, my else block code will be executed. Okay, so let's take an example for this. So let me change this again and say my value would be 6 at this time again. So I have taken a 6. So what would be done? If number is greater than 0, then console.log this statement will be displayed. If console log is not greater than 0, then it will be. So let's run it in the both cases. Okay, because I have given. So let me do one thing. I'll now the number, the if else statement is easy because my number is over here. I have provided as a -6. Okay, so this statement is evaluate is not true as a false, so it will go into the else block and execute. The number is either a negative number or a 0. So that this is why this statement is displayed over here, and the console of the if else statement is easy. Okay, now let's take another example of if else if statement. Okay, so if condition, this is the syntax which we use. Code block 1 else if condition 2 block code block 2 block 2 else another condition code block 3. Okay, so let me put in 1. Okay. So this is how. So what it say, if condition evaluates to true, the code block 1 is executed. If condition 1 evaluates to false, then condition 2 is evaluated, and if the condition 2 is true, the code block 2 is executed. If the condition 2 is false, then the code block 3 is executed. So this is how the if else if work. Okay, so let's take the example. Okay, so let me. So my number constant value number is -6. Okay, you can see that this is -6. So what would be the result in that case? When it's run, it will check is -6 is greater than 0. No, so it will evaluate the condition number 2, else if number is equal to 0, then again is failed. So what it will do, it will say else console.log the number is negative and place this would be the display. So let's run it and we'll see. So now you can see the number is negative. This statement is showing over here, and the if else statement is easy. Okay, so this is how we use if else statement. Now let's talk about the nested if else statement. Okay, so let's take an example of this. So this is if number is greater than or equal to 0, then if check if number is 0, else this is how it's going to be run it. Otherwise it will console this. So my number is negative at this moment. So what I'm going to do is if I'm going to run it, it will check my number is -6. So that means this condition is evaluate as a false. So it will directly come to over here. But let's say I create this statement, and I would say it's a 6, value is 6, then what it will do, it will check the value over here, num, and then it will say num is greater than 0, equal or equal to 0, so that's right. So it will go on inside that. There's another if else statement is written over here. It will check the value as a 0. If it's equal to 0, it will display this statement, otherwise this one statement. But in case if it's less than a 0, okay, so it will come to directly onto this else condition and will print this one. So let's print this and see the result. So you can see you are entered a positive number because we have given the positive number over here. This is my positive number, so it will say if I run this as a 0, let's say if I say 0, let me clear this and run it, you can see your enter number is 0, right? So this is how the if statements we are going to use it. Okay, so now let's talk about loops. So let me create another file over here because we are going to work with. Let me save this name as js loops.js. So first we are going to understand the JavaScript for loop. Okay, for loop, let's talk about the syntax. Initial expression, the condition, and update expression. So this is a basically, and over here for loop body, right? So in this, what is exactly happened? The initial expression initialize or declares variables and executes only once. The condition is evaluated. If the condition is false, the for loop is terminated. If the condition is true, the block of code inside of the for loop is executed. Update expression updates the value of initial expression when the condition is true and the condition is evaluated again. This process continues until the condition is false. So let's say we see example of over here. So this is my constant variable, constant. I have given the n value as a 5. So I'm going to, this is my for loop. So what I have done, I have initiate expression, initial expression. This is my condition. It will execute till my I value is less than or equal to n, and the update expression is I plus plus. That means every time it will increment my increment I value by 1. Okay, and it will run this. So let's run this. Let me clear this first, like node, and I say js underscore loop, and I will run it. So you can see it's executed 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 times. Right? So this is how we use for loops. Okay. Yeah. So there's another thing, and we'll talk about. I'll give you an example of infinite loops. Okay. So how the infinite will work. So there's a condition. Let me write down for let I equal to 1. Give a condition over here. I is greater than 0, I plus plus, and my body will be block of code. So this is the infinite for loop. Now let's talk about the while. Let me write down over here. While and do while statement we are going to study. Okay, so let's talk about first the syntax. While condition and body of loop. Okay, so this is, and how is it going to work it? See, a while loop evaluates the condition inside the parenthesis. Okay, and if the condition evaluates to true, the code inside the while loop is executed. The condition is evaluated again. This process continues until the condition is false. When the condition evaluates to false, the loop stops. So let's see example for that. So this is my variable I and another variable n. So my condition is I less than or equal to n, and I'm printing the value of I, and what I'm doing, I'm incrementing it I by 1. Okay, so it will run execute till my I is not equal to 5. Okay, so let's run it and we see. Okay, by saying n is a number. User, just a moment, it's saying n has already been declared. Okay, so let's say this is what I'm giving over here, num, and clear the console and run it again. So my for loop is executed because this is a part of for loop. And why is not executing in this in the same line? Let me see. Okay, I got it. Why? Because I have given this loop, right? So let me do one thing. Uh, let me remove this. Okay, and now run it again. I'm going to run it again. So you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 giving me a value of the while, because by n value over here, the value num is equal to 5, I equal to 1, and whenever I, unless and until my I value is not equal to 5, it will execute and print my value of I. So this is how the while loop is work. Okay, now let's talk about do while loop. Do I would say body of loop and over here while condition. Okay, so the body of the loop is executed at first, then the condition is evaluated. So if the condition evaluates to true, the body of the loop inside the do statement is executed again. The condition is evaluated once again. Okay, so if the condition evaluates to true, the body of the loop inside the do statement is executed again. This process continues until the condition evaluates to false, then the loops stop. Okay, so the example over here, let's take the example. Let me change. Okay, so what I'm doing over here, So this is my condition. It will execute. It will first display the value 1, then it will increment by value plus 1, so it will be 2. Then it will check the condition whether my value 2 is less than or equal to b, which is 5, and if it's yes, the condition is true, then it will again, once this evaluate as a false, it will exit from the code. So let's run this again. So you can see 1 2 3 4 5 till the 5, and if I say remove the equal sign and again run it, I can see it will print until only 4. So this is how a do while loop is work. So basically understand difference between for loop versus while loop. Okay, so a for loop is usually used when the number of iteration is known. Okay, and while and do while loops are usually used when the number of iterations are unknown. Okay, so this is basically a major difference, that in the for loop we know the number of iteration, but for while loop when we don't know the number of iterations. Okay,